Hi there, you're with Simon, and I'm here to talk to you today about losing a loved one and the process that you will go through inevitably when you lose a loved one. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is the positivity behind it, as the negativity is such an obvious thing, the sadness and the mourning that we go through. Those things are so obvious, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. I want to talk about the positive things, which is the way that you celebrate the person's story or their life. So, one of the greatest things about going through someone's life and talking to other people in your family or in the friendship circles to understand how the person lived, what their perceptions were outside of your own perceptions, so that you can form a better idea about who that person was, even if they are a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, a best friend, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. Forming that idea of their life can be amazing and can give you some real insights into who that person was in general and who that person was to you. And I believe that's a positive thing. May disagree depending on your circumstances, but my purpose here, my intention is to bring good things into this idea of losing loved ones. So, first, remember above all that no matter how close your relationship was with that person, their story or their personality that you are celebrating is theirs and not yours. It doesn't belong to you. So you really are trying to recognize who they are separate from who you are. Of course, you have your relationship, you have your perceptions of them, but taking into account who they really are outside of the relationship you have with them. And then when you grieve, know that when you grieve, it's from a very personal perspective. Your point of view when you grieve is about those moments you shared together, is about those moments when you were hugging or spending time together, talking, coming closer to each other, and sharing moments that you'll never forget, even when you die. So, also another reason that grieving is not all negative, even though it does really feel bad at times. You really feel that loss. And that in this perspective, when you are grieving someone, that personal connection you have with them and the way you express your grief is yours. And if someone else from the family or friendship circles comes and makes a judgment of you, remember that has no bearing on your connection with that person. It has no bearing on your feelings, and you have the personal duty to ignore them. You cannot take on their comments, you cannot take on their ideas because their grief is not to be trusted and not to be understood as your grief. Your grief is for you, their grief is for them. When they come and make comments of sadness or comments motivated by hurt, which are offensive to you, remember that it's not to react. Your job is to focus primarily on how you're feeling. Remember that when you see demonstrations of that kind of thing, it's their inability to deal with their feelings. And remember that all of those feelings that when you yourself feel desperation, grief, sadness, confusion, guilt, these emotions are powerful. And when you feel them, you need to recognize one truth, and that is that none of these emotions are your enemies. None of these emotions are your enemies. They seem like enemies when you see them in other people, but when they're in yourself, they are not enemies of you. So don't resist them. Let them come. And don't protect yourself or hide behind a nice appearance that everything is okay, or a door that looks like you're peaceful or something. This false appearance of peace will only prolong your pain and perhaps take you down a darker road, because when these emotions are ignored, they seem to grow superpowers and distract you from restarting your life. Okay? So replace guilt and anger as you feel all of these emotions, as you start to get accustomed to feeling the grief and the sadness. Replace these two negative emotions slowly but surely, these two negative emotions, which are guilt and anger, replace them with well-wishing, forgiveness, and a focus on those things that you remember in the person you lost, that help you to admire them, that make you remember why you loved them, or sides that were lost to them that you loved. It became more obscure over time, but they were still part of them. And focus primarily on those things when you say goodbye to someone that you love. Okay, that's my video for today. And when you lose a loved one, I know it is a terrible feeling, but there are amazing opportunities to grow personally and emotionally, and that those opportunities should be taken by you, because this process doesn't get any easier through the people that we lose in our life, and generally we're going to lose more than one person. So be ready, because losing people is part of living life, and part of living life is dying, and each of us will eventually die if we are not converted to some kind of superior AI system. And in that case, we can celebrate when that moment comes, but that moment hasn't come. So I'll see you on my next video, and remember my words of today, and have faith that you will get over this experience. Thank you so much for listening in today.